what happened in Spain during the 18th century. The political developments in the 18th century in Spain were the results of a dynastic change, as the Habsburgs were replaced by the Bourbons, and the Bourbons' government in Spain became more centralized. Carlos II, this guy here, it was the last of the Habsburgs. He died without heirs, creating a serious conflict over the succession. This conflict became the War of Spanish Successions from 1700 and 1740. Charles II, Carlos II, had named Philip of Anjou as his successor to the Spanish throne. He was from the Bourbon dynasty and was a grandson of Louis XIV. Philip was supported by the Crown of Castile, as you can see in purple in this map. On the other hand, the other candidate, here, okay, it was Charles of Habsburg. He was supported at the beginning by Austria, all the Sacro Romano Germánico, Great Britain, and the Crown of Aragon on board. This war is important because it's an international war between France and Austria that is going to lead into a peace called the Treaty of Utrecht, and also it's going to be a civil war between Castilla and Aragon that are going to sign the peace with the Decretals of November. Why it's important, and it's not only confrontation between two different kings, two different candidates, but also two different conceptions of the monarchy. On one hand, we have Felipe d'Anjou, would be Felipe V, that he preferred a centralized government. A centralized government following the absolute monarchies of France. He was the grandson of Louis XIV. On the other hand, we have the candidates from the Sacro Imperio Romano Germánico, from the Habsburgs, that they prefer a decentralized government. That is, that depend each territory inside the empire will decide about their own business. That is why inside Spain we are going to have the Crown of Castilla that prefer the centralized power from France, and on the other hand we have the Crown of Aragon that prefer the decentralized power from Austria. That is why they are going to be divided. Also inside Spain they are going to be divided, supporting two different models of how to organize the politics in a country. What happened at the beginning, Great Britain, England is going to support the Austrians because they don't want to France and Spain be together under the same dynasty. And also because Great Britain and France, they were enemies forever. But in the middle of the war, something changed. The candidate, Carlos de Habsburgo, this guy here, he inherited the crown from the empire. So if he would have won the war in Spain, he would have been the king of the empire and of Spain. So Great Britain didn't want this. Didn't want one guy in Europe with a lot of power. So England decided to change and support France. They signed the Treaty of Utrecht, that it's here in 1713. This Treaty of Utrecht and Rastatt are going to be that, like you can see here, the map, okay, after the Treaty of Utrecht, the different territories that are going to change from one to another. Austria gained lands from Spain, including Milan and the Spanish Netherlands, while Great Britain gained Gibraltar and Menorca. Also, for England, it was a great deal, this treaty, because they gained some territories, Gibraltar and Menorca, but also they gained the right to trade with America. That it was something that they were looking for during a lot of time. Okay, so we have here that in 1714, okay, I have here some articles. In 1714, we have a new dynasty governing in Spain. Philip V, Felipe V, was the first king of this new dynasty that is still nowadays. They are going to adopt some measures to achieve administrative uniformity throughout Spain. That is the central government, that some ministries were created, Las Cortes were unified in a simple body, Castilla's laws were imposed on Aragon and punishment for not supporting Felipe V in the war. Spain was divided into provinces. It was some of, for example, the intendant was introduced that collect taxes. The local government also changed some things, etc. This is what we call the Nueva Planta Decrees. The Nueva Planta Decrees said that all Spain has to be in the same institutions. This especially affect to Aragon, Valencia, Catalonia, and Mallorca that lost their status because they fought against Felipe V during the War of Succession. In the other hand, we have Navarra and the Basque countries that kept their charters because they support Felipe V during the war. So it was kind of a punishment because of the different supporters. You have here something related with these treaties. So economy, what happened? When we talk about the ancient regime, we said that in the 17th century, Spain mainly and all Europe were living in the 17th century crisis. But in the 18th century, it was a time of economic prosperity due to, for example, the growth of population. You have the data, okay, from 7.5 to 10.5 million, and the economic societies in Spain called the Friends of the Country, Las Sociedades Amigas del País, that disseminate the innovations of the age, the Enlightenment ideas, etc. And during the 18th century, harvests improved for a number of reasons. They introduced new agricultural techniques, for example, crop rotations, machinery increase, etc. New crops were introduced here, such as potatoes and corn, that improved human and animal nutrition. The crafts production, due to the increase of population, raising the demand. The guild system, it was more opened. The domestic system production were very important. The peasants made products in their own houses and sold them to the merchants. And appeared the royal manufacturers, also as real factories. For example, here the royal glass and crystal factory from Naranja de San Ildefonso, or the tapestry factory in Madrid, or it was some that produced luxury goods based in large workshops, and the workers used simple tools. This was based on the Sociedades Económicas Amigas del País. They are going to promote, for example, the irrigations. They are going to promote royal manufacturers, free trade, etc. A lot of things. It was important in Spain. Also, some social reforms were introduced. Being a member of the nobility is not going to be longer considered incompatible with work or commerce. The Jesuits, for example, were expelled from Spain because they were against the reforms, and the power of the Inquisition is going to be reduced. Some laws were passed to change social costumes, for example, the prohibitions of using long cloaks and wide brim hats that hid the identity of the men who wore them. This measure, for example, provoked some riots, for example, against Esquilache, that was one of the ministers of Carlos III, that he was also, although it was an excuse for a survival problem due to the prices on the basic products. Okay, so this is a summary, okay, of the main social economic reforms that they were taken in Spain thanks to the Enlightenment despotism. The last thing that is not here, that it's important, it was the scientific advances on the influences in enlightenment and education and the science, and medicine, physics, theology, etc. that you have all the information in your book that you should read in page 31. So before we move on to the next unit, it will be great that you are able to compare the evolution of these two systems. So you have to compare in politics, in the economy, and in the society, the main differences of the ancient regime and the liberalism in order to summarize the information from this book.